Welcome to Sonara's Deep Dive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again to plunge into some complex topics and hopefully bring you some clarity and maybe some unexpected insights.
Great to be diving in.
So I wanted to start today with something that feels, well, almost like a paradox. You look around at our world, hyper-modern, tech everywhere, increasingly secular trends, and yet there's this really profound growing fascination with ancient spiritual practices. I mean, traditions that are literally millennia old.
Right, rooted in these very different, often deeply ecological worldviews.
Exactly. And they're finding this vibrant, renewed life right now in the 21st century. So the big questions are, how is this happening? How can we explain this resurgence? And what does it really signify for us today?
It's a fascinating tension, isn't it? That pull towards something ancient in our very modern lives.
It really is. So this deep dive, we're dedicating it to unearthing the enduring roots of these spiritual perspectives. We're going to focus specifically on animism and shamanism.
Foundational concepts, really.
Absolutely. We'll sort of trace their origins, looking at places like the Amazon rainforest, exploring their remarkable power, their adaptability through centuries of, well, immense change.
And then bring it forward to today.
Yeah, exactly. From there, we have to move into the really complex ethical and cultural questions that surround their very global revival today.
Because it's not simple.
Not at all. Our mission here, as always, is to help you understand how these profound beliefs haven't just persisted, but how they've adapted, especially through intense colonial encounters, and crucially, what's genuinely driving their resurfacing in our contemporary world.
What's the appeal now?
Right. We'll look at the incredible insights these practices might offer for personal growth, maybe ecological connection, but we also need to critically examine the significant challenges they face. Things like cultural integrity, intellectual property battles, and that really delicate balance of respectful engagement versus, well, appropriation.
Big issue.
Huge. And to navigate all this, we're drawing from a pretty diverse array of sources. We've got everything from in-depth ethnographic research on Amazonian animism and shamanism
To detailed historical accounts of colonial impact.
and right up to contemporary discussions on things like ayahuasca's rapid global spread, and that often, let's face it, heated debate around cultural appropriation.
Yeah, it gets contentious.
It does. So we'll guide you through these varied perspectives, try to distill the most important insights, give you the context you need. But importantly, we're not taking a definitive stance on some of the more sensitive issues.
Our goal is really just to present the information clearly.
Exactly, to empower you to form your own well-informed understanding.
It's quite striking, isn't it, this resurgence? It doesn't feel like just a fleeting trend or, a niche interest for a handful of people.
Well, it seems deeper.
It really seems to speak to some kind of fundamental human yearning, something that persists, maybe even intensifies in our modern context.
So to really grasp the significance of this contemporary revival, where do we start? We have to understand the foundations, right?
Absolutely. We must first understand the deep historical and cultural underpinnings of these practices.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack this foundational concept, animism, because it's so much more expansive than just a simple dictionary definition.
Right. It's often misunderstood.
When we talk about animism, it's not really a religion in the Western sense.
Right.
The way we think of a specific creed or a sacred text or some organized institution.
Not at all. In fact, you find that many indigenous peoples don't even have a single word for animism.
Because it's just how things are.
Exactly. It's not a belief system they choose to adopt. It's inherent to their perception of reality, their way of being in the world.
So the term itself, animism, as we use it, where did that come from?
Well, it's an anthropological construct, really. It was first introduced by Edward Tyler back in 1871. His broad definition was basically the belief that animals and plants possess souls.
Okay, simple enough on the surface.
But the conversation, both academically and culturally, has evolved quite a bit since Tyler. Now we talk about the new animism.
The new animism. What does that entail?
It moves beyond just classifying beliefs. It really emphasizes a profound ethical and ecological understanding. It talks about fostering an I-thou relationship with the living world.
Instead of an I-it relationship.
Precisely, where the world isn't just a collection of objects or resources for us to use, but a community of living beings we're related to.
Okay, that's where it gets really transformative.
That's it.
It's not just what you believe, but how you relate.
Exactly.
So let's push that idea. If we were to truly embrace this I-thou ethic, thinking of the natural world not as resources, but as, this vibrant, interconnected web of kin, where everything, a bird, a river, a tree, even stones, has spirit, agency, personhood. What's a practical implication of that, maybe when people overlook? Thinking about, say, conservation or even just our daily consumption habits.
That's a crucial question because the shift is radical. If you truly internalize that I-thou perspective, your relationship with nature changes completely. It moves from extraction and dominance
To reciprocity and respect.
right, and the surprising implication. Maybe that environmental conservation wouldn't feel like an external obligation, something we have to do. It would become an intrinsic ethical imperative, almost like maintaining family bonds.
Like caring for your relatives.
Exactly. Your consumption habits wouldn't just be about what can I take, they'd be guided by asking, what does this being, this system, need from me? What can I offer in return? It's moving beyond just sustainability towards, well, deep ecological reverence.
Wow.
And what's fascinating here is how consistent these underlying ideas are, across incredibly diverse cultures. It really suggests a fundamental human way of relating to the world.
Not just an isolated belief system.
No. And this deeply rooted animistic perspective, you see it so clearly in the rich tapestry of Amazonian shamanism.
Right. Let's go there. Amazonian shamanism.
Here, the beliefs and practices are based on this really intricate mythic tradition. Cosmology, creation stories, it's all interwoven. There's the idea of a present world where we live our daily life.
Our mundane reality, so to speak.
But existing simultaneously is another world, a supernatural sphere, and beings can travel between these two worlds.
Okay, so parallel dimensions almost.
In a way. This other world is often described quite vividly. It might be dark, existing underground perhaps, or underwater, and it's populated by powerful beings, deities, culture heroes,
And these are often ancestors.
typically understood as the revered ancestors of living humans. Yes, think of it like a realm that's physically distinct, maybe accessible from special places like deep caves or river depths, but it's spiritually intertwined with ours.
Constantly interacting.
Constantly. And a really insightful part of this cosmology is the belief in a continuous cycle between these worlds. Spirits, after physical death, they transition to that other world.
But they don't just stay there.
No, they're believed to return. They come back to Earth as the souls of future generations, keeping the life cycle going.
Wow. And how is that managed?
Within this system, there are supernatural controllers, often associated with animal species. They play a vital role, they manage these movements, they might adjust the numbers of animals available for hunting, ensuring ecological balance.
And they also govern the return of souls.
Right, the number of souls returning as new infants, helping regulate population. These spirits, well, they can be benevolent or malevolent. They can reach out to our world, doing good or causing harm.
So you have to interact with them carefully.
Exactly. People believe they need respect, propitiation, offerings, rituals, because unhappy or neglected spirits can cause real problems for the living. Illness, bad luck, even death.
And that's where the shaman comes in.
Absolutely crucial figures. They are the intermediaries. They can intercede with spirits for the community. They can diagnose problems by identifying which spirit is causing trouble.
Or even use spirits.
In some cases, yes. They might even marshal spirits to cause harm to rivals or enemies. And it's also profoundly important to note, tying back to animism, that many Amazonian peoples traditionally see humans and animals as kin, not separate categories with humans on top.
Reinforcing that ethical connection.
Precisely.
This rich spiritual history, especially in the Amazon.
Yeah.
You as mentioned, it reveals insights into gender roles, too.
Yes, absolutely. Which prompts that important question. How did strong female spiritual leadership manifest? What does it tell us about those ancient societies?
So what clues do we have?
Well, archaeological findings, particularly from what's called the polychrome tradition, this vibrant cultural period known for its distinctive painted pottery, offer some fascinating clues. In burials from this tradition, we find these exquisite female figurines.
Okay.
Often alongside them are small cups shaped like female breasts and these peculiar hemispherical spoons with hollow handles. Scholars speculate these might have been used for ritual drug consumption, maybe hallucinogenic brews.
Interesting. Ritual paraphernalia.
And then you have specific myths. Some polychrome tradition, peoples in the Northwest Amazon, for instance, tell origin stories of descending from a powerful female anaconda, originating from a matriarchy near the mouth of the Amazon.
A female anaconda deity.
Yes, and they recount how a formidable woman shaman deity created the supernatural Amazon River, which they understand as the Milky Way, using milk from her breasts.
That's an incredibly powerful image.
Yeah.
Creative, nurturing power.
It speaks volumes. And then you look at other sites like Marawara burials. They include these round stools, miniature ones, and full-size ones.
Stools. What's the significance?
Well, they're shaped remarkably like the stools used in girls' puberty ceremonies in ethnographically known societies, like the Kashinawa. It points towards prominent female roles in ritual life.
Connecting archaeology to known practices.
Exactly. And the ceramic art itself, the iconography, frequently privilege women as shamans. They're depicted in ceremonial contexts. Even the animal effigies, turtles, armadillos, ducks, crocodilians, fish, the powerful boa serpent. These are often associated with spheres linked to female deities. Under the earth, under the water, the night. Realms of mystery, primordial power.
So, not exclusively female shamans, but prominent.
Male shamans were definitely represented too, but the prominence of female imagery is undeniable. Plus, think about the living arrangements. The layout of multiple hearths within the large communal houses from that time strongly suggests matrilocal residence.
Where the couple lives with the wife's family.
Right, and that kind of arrangement significantly enhances female solidarity, their networks, their power within the community. It provides a robust social foundation for their spiritual authority.
That's a truly stunning connection, the woman shaman. The Milky Way, the art, the social structure. It illustrates that interwoven connection between myth, art, daily life, and the sacred. It's not just a story. It's like a living blueprint for existence.
Precisely. And this rich spiritual legacy, especially that distinctive decorative style of the polychrome tradition, it isn't just ancient history. It's still alive.
It still predominates today.
In the upper Amazon, you see it vibrantly expressed in textiles, pottery, wood carvings. In the northwest Amazon, these intricate patterns adorn painted house fronts, ceiling plaques.
And these aren't just decorative.
No. They represent the people's mythic origin, their cosmology. Even far away at the mouth of the Orinoco, these ancient patterns survive in the delicate incisions on shamans' rattles or in rare sacred paintings on ritual headdresses. It's an enduring testament to their power.
Amazing continuity.
And you see these enduring connections, animism and shamanism, woven into the fabric of specific cultures today, like the Shipibo Kanibo.
Right. Their art is famous.
Yes, and their beliefs about the great cosmic anaconda and its hallucinogenic vine, ayahuasca, these aren't just abstract ideas. They're dynamically expressed in that intricate geometric art, yes, but also in their vital curing ceremonies, their sophisticated hunting practices, the profound girls' puberty rites. It's all part of a coherent worldview.
It connects everything.
Or think of the Waro people with their deep prehistoric roots, their beliefs about a preeminent female anaconda deity, her associated trees, waters, fauna. They're intrinsically linked to their highly skilled craft of canoe making, absolutely central to their survival and culture, and even to their intricate astrological calendar, guiding their seasonal rhythms.
Wow. Canoe making and the stars linked to the anaconda deity.
Exactly. And among the Tucanoan and Arawakan speakers in the northwest Amazon, their creation myths relating the woman shaman and her powerful anaconda in primordial creation time connect directly to their ancestors' origins. These myths aren't just stories told, they're integrated into curing practices, food processing techniques, how they organize kinship, even their astronomical links to seasons and ceremonies.
It really is a living, breathing tradition, interwoven with every single aspect of life, a truly holistic approach.
It's precisely that holistic integration that's so compelling. And if we broaden our perspective beyond Amazonia, it really demonstrates that this way of seeing the world, this animistic view, isn't some isolated phenomenon. It's a deeply embedded thread throughout human history, across continents, in diverse cultures.
So where else do we see strong animistic threads?
Well, consider the rich spiritual landscape of Asian traditions. In Hinduism, for instance, the banyan tree holds immense symbolic weight.
The banyan tree, right.
A single banyan leaf is seen as Krishna's resting place during cosmic dissolution. The Bhagavad Gita famously likens the banyan with its roots growing upward, branches downward to the Vedic hymns themselves. It implies profound spiritual knowledge, the interconnectedness of everything.
Powerful symbol.
Similarly, Buddhism's Pali Canon often uses the banyan tree as a metaphor, frequently linking its epiphytic nature, how it grows on other trees, to sensual desire, showing how attachments can take root and spread.
Interesting. How about China or Japan?
In ancient China, during the Shang dynasty, going way back, their state religion was deeply animistic. It spiritualized natural phenomena, mountains, rivers, they all had sacred agency. And Japan's traditional Shinto religion is a prime example today. It centers on kami.
Kami spirits or deities.
Exactly. Supernatural beings thought to inhabit all things. Natural forces like wind and rain, specific places like mountains and waterfalls, even esteemed ancestors. These kamis are worshipped at countless shrines across Japan, showing this deep reverence for the living world.
And similar ideas elsewhere in Asia.
Definitely. The indigenous Ryukyuan religion in Okinawa shares many animistic traits: ancestor worship, sacredness of nature. If you go west to remote valleys in Pakistan, you find the Kalash people.
The Kalash, right? Known for resisting conversion.
Exactly. They practice an ancient animistic religion, sometimes linked to an old form of Hinduism. They fiercely fought forced conversion to Islam for centuries, a testament to the enduring power of their beliefs in spirits and deities connected to their natural environment.
And Korea.
The Philippines. In Korea, the native belief system, Moodism, features Kwisn deities, ancestral or nature spirits that actively interact with humans, requiring communication. In the Philippines, indigenous religions often believe in Abdel, a vital essence in all things, and they venerate guardian Anito spirits dwelling in things like water-worn stones called pinaying, sacred altars for communion.
So it's really widespread. What about Europe? Ancient paganism.
Absolutely. Animism forms a core element there, too. Cultures like the Celts, Norse, Greeks, Romans, Slavs, they frequently saw natural features as sacred, inhabited by powerful spiritual beings.
Gods of rivers, sacred groves.
Precisely. Their deities weren't distant. They were intimately linked to specific rivers, ancient trees, majestic mountains. They embodied the essence of those places. The historian Ronald Hutton put it powerfully: nature in these contexts wasn't just revered, it was considered alive and participatory in religious life, a dynamic partner.
Alive and participatory. I like that. Did these ideas survive the spread of monotheism?
Remarkably, aspects did persist, especially through folk religion, particularly in rural areas. Customs like venerating household spirits, celebrating seasonal festivals tied to nature's cycles, personifying natural phenomena, these often continued, sometimes just reinterpreted.
How so?
Well, for instance, springs and wells, once linked to powerful local deities, might later be associated with Christian saints. It shows this amazing continuity of deeply ingrained animistic concepts, just layered over with new cultural interpretations.
That's a powerful illustration of how deep these beliefs run across human civilization. So, okay, we have these rich, integrated spiritual systems existing for millennia, deeply woven into life. But then comes contact with European colonial powers. And that clash of worldviews must have been profound, catastrophic even.
Absolutely devastating in many cases. European colonizers, like those arriving in Guyana, typically saw their Christian beliefs as inherently superior.
Naturally.
They often dismissed indigenous peoples as naked heathens, specifically because they believed that non-humans, animals, plants, even thunder or rivers, possessed souls and agency.
It was incomprehensible to them.
A complete inversion of their perspective, a fundamental inability to grasp a worldview where humanity wasn't the absolute apex of creation. In the Amazon, for example, the term page, for shaman, was quickly equated with witch by Europeans.
Witch? Loaded term.
Very. And this repulsion wasn't just individual prejudice. It was reinforced institutionally by the Inquisition, which actively sought to stamp out anything deemed heretical or pagan.
It's disturbing, especially when you think back to Columbus's early accounts. He initially described indigenous peoples living in a golden world, content, satisfying nature.
Yet, despite that observation, the ethnocentric lens kicked in. Their own systems were deemed superior, justifying conquest, justifying cultural suppression.
A stark contrast indeed. And it prompts that crucial question: how do these deeply rooted indigenous spiritual practices even survive under such immense pressure, especially when the dominant power is actively trying to eradicate them through force, through assimilation?
It's a testament to their resilience. The colonial processes in the Western Amazon in particular profoundly reshaped traditional life. It led to intensive cultural exchange, the formation of mestizos or caboclos people of mixed European and native ancestry, creating a new demographic, bridging these divides.
So blending occurred.
Yes, often under duress. Indigenous groups facing unimaginable violence, starvation, new diseases, they often sought protection by moving into missions set up by colonizers.
A refuge, but at a cost.
Exactly. While offering some physical safety, these missions accelerated intense cultural intermingling and transformation. New syncretic forms of belief and practice emerged in these crucibles.
And shamanism within that. ayahuasca shamanism.
It was precisely in these contexts of transformation and adaptation that shamanism, particularly ayahuasca shamanism, evolved and found new expressions, especially among these mestizos and the growing class of rubber workers, caucheros or serengeros.
Real rubber booms were key here.
Hugely influential. These practices often took on more overtly therapeutic goals. Practitioners became known as vegetalistas, plant specialists, said to gain their knowledge and healing power directly from the plants and their spirits.
Adapting to new needs, new populations.
Yes, the Amazon rubber cycles, especially the first boom, 1879-1912, and the second, 1945-1945, accelerated these changes. Mestizo practices intertwined with the culture of the rubber workers flocking to the region. In some areas, these workers were even seen as the main force adapting and spreading ayahuasca use for healing, as diverse people lived and worked together in harsh conditions.
So rather than being wiped out, it adapted, thrived in the margins.
What's truly fascinating is exactly that. It adapted, survived, even thrived subtly, weaving itself into daily colonial life. It evolved into this resilient system of healing and harming that permeated all levels of society.
Even with the Inquisition looking on.
Yes. The Inquisition in colonial Brazil actively investigated popular religiosity in its various, often syncretic forms. Shamanism was frequently targeted, denounced as feitiçaria, witchcraft, a challenge to Catholic orthodoxy.
But it persisted.
Despite intense suppression, shamanism wasn't just preserved, it was actively recreated in colonial contexts. It was nourished by these vibrant, often clandestine networks between indigenous communities and colonial spaces, allowing for exchange of practices, ideas, interpretations.
Underground networks.
You could say that. And the historical records, like denunciations from the 18th century, they reveal this huge gap between official Catholic doctrine and popular belief. They show all segments of society in places like Pará elites, even a Portuguese governor, down to the enslaved mixed-race populations, everyone resorted to shamans for healing, divination, maybe even harm.
Wow. Even the elites were involved.
It highlights how deeply embedded these practices were, despite efforts to convert and control.
Did shamanism also play a role in resistance?
In some Amazonian regions, definitely. Ancestral and mythical power, accessed through ritual, was mobilized to resist colonial authority. Practices like the Tapajós ancestor cult deliberately moved deeper into the forests, away from colonial control, preserving traditions in secret.
Concealment as a strategy.
Exactly. Rituals evolved to incorporate concealment, subterfuge. The Munduruku, for instance, adapted practices like taking heads as trophies or burying tree trunks instead of bodies, complex rituals that perpetuated sacred practices under external constraints, making it look like traditions had stopped when they continued in modified forms.
Clever adaptations.
There's even this compelling anecdote from the lower Tapajós, early 1760s. A shaman named Marçal was accused of using pretenses to deceive villagers about spirits. Seems like a clear case for the church to condemn, right?
You'd think so.
Yet his confessor was advised to keep Marçal's secrets to avoid publicly discrediting him. Why? To maintain respect and influence from the indigenous people whom Marçal held sway over.
Wow. A grudging recognition of his power.
It reveals the intricate, contradictory power dynamics. Even those trying to dismantle shamanism had to acknowledge its authority sometimes.
That's a remarkable story. Shows the sheer resilience, the strategic adaptation. Ade, so let's move into our modern era. We're seeing this truly global reemergence of interest in these ancient spiritual tools. And ayahuasca, the vine of the soul, seems like one of the most prominent examples.
Definitely one of the most globally recognized now. While its precise origin is a bit uncertain, we know the specific ritual use of ayahuasca was already widespread among indigenous groups by the 19th century. It has a long history of cultural integration.
And its preparation isn't simple, right? Not just making tea.
Not at all. Traditionally, it's a deeply ritualistic, multi-day process. Careful maceration, boiling of the Banisteriopsis capi vine, often called yaje, together with other plants like Psychotria viridis.
And its uses were varied.
Immensely. For diverse South American cultures, it's been used for spiritual insight, communion, fostering social cohesion, powerful medicinal healing, always guided by experienced shamans in specific ceremonial contexts. That includes strict dietary restrictions, other ritual practices to prepare participants.
And certain groups are strongly associated with it.
The Shipibo-Canibo people, particularly, have played a hugely significant historical and cultural role in its use and spread throughout the Amazon. And the name itself, ayahuasca.
from Quechua.
Yes. Aya means soul or spirit. Huasca means vine, vine of the soul. The name itself signifies its purpose, a bridge to insight, connecting with deeper aspects of oneself and the spiritual realm.
Vine of the soul. Powerful.
Indeed, that name points right to its core function, a spiritual bridge, a conduit to insight and understanding, and ayahuasca showed its adaptability early on. By the mid-20th century, it had spread widely through syncretic religions in Brazil.
Blending with other traditions.
Yes, blending with Christian and African elements to form new paths like Santo Daime and Union de Vegetal. It showed it could integrate into new cultural landscapes. Then, late 20th century, its use just exploded beyond South America
Europe, North America.
and elsewhere, propelled by counterculture interest, more travel, that quest for deeper meaning in a secularizing world. This global spread led not just to adopting traditional religious uses, but also new, non-religious adaptations, and even the development of analogs using local or synthetic ingredients.
So its use diversified, often detached from the roots.
Exactly, further complicating things.
So as this sacred brew goes from local remedy to global phenomenon, what does that mean for its legal status and its relationship with the scientific community? It must be complicated.
Incredibly complicated. Internationally, DMT, a key psychoactive component, is a Schedule I drug under the UN 1971 Convention. That puts it with substances seen as having high abuse potential, no accepted medical use, makes research very difficult.
But the plants themselves?
That's the crucial nuance and often the legal sticking point. The plants containing DMT, like Banisteriopsis caapi and Psychotria viridis, are typically not under international control via the Vienna Convention. This creates this patchwork, often inconsistent legal landscape for ayahuasca itself.
So legal battles have happened.
Significant ones, mostly around religious freedom. The Santo Daime churches won a precedent-setting case in the Netherlands back in 2001, recognizing their right to use it religiously. Canada granted a similar exemption in 2017.
What about Brazil, its heartland?
Brazil actually legalized its religious use back in the mid-1980s after official inquiries and ethnographic studies. They concluded it wasn't a recreational drug and had valid spiritual and therapeutic uses in its traditional context.
But not everywhere is so accepting.
No. France, for example, initially allowed it, then reversed course in 2005, scheduling the ingredients as narcotics. It shows the widely divergent approaches.
And what about the science? Is research happening on its potential benefits?
Preliminary research is slowly emerging. It shows potential for mental health conditions, but the findings are complex. One study, for instance, found nearly 90% of participants who had what we might call negative experiences during the session. Intense hallucinations, anxiety, depression.
Difficult experiences?
Actually saw them later as an integral part of a positive process of growth or integration.
So the difficulty itself was transformative.
That's the suggestion, incredibly nuanced. But the path to widespread medical acceptance is arduous. Getting federal grants, industry funding for Schedule I substances in places like the U.S. is incredibly hard. That severely hinders large-scale research on benefits and risks.
Which seems strange when you see other psychedelics gaining ground.
Exactly. It's striking when you see psilocybin MDMA getting breakthrough therapy designations from the FDA in the U.S. That fast-tracks research for PTSD, depression, anxiety. It signals a significant shift in perception towards psychedelics' therapeutic potential.
But ayahuasca faces unique hurdles.
Yes, perhaps due to its complex botanical nature, its strong traditional cultural ties, and that Schedule I status of DMT, it seems there's growing openness, but ayahuasca is in a particularly complex position.
It really is an intricate dance balancing potential benefits, regulations, and these fundamental cultural rights. Which brings us right back to that tension. Western legal and economic frameworks versus traditional knowledge and sacred practices, especially when funding for research is so tough.
And this friction comes into sharp focus with battles over intellectual property.
Yes, the patent issue.
The controversy around the divine ayahuasca plant patent is a perfect example. The name itself, that pun on divine and the vine, maybe inadvertently highlighted its sacred status.
And the arguments against it.
They were fierce, citing its profound sacred status for Amazonian indigenous peoples, arguing vehemently that such a revered plant cannot be subject to private appropriation under Western IP law.
Because it's communally owned, sacred.
Exactly. Indigenous communities emphasize that only authorized shamans traditionally prepare it. No community member drinks it without their guidance. It underscores collective cultural ownership, the sacred protocols. It wasn't a product for sale. It was part of their spiritual identity.
What happened with the patent?
Initially, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, reinstated it, sparking global outrage and protests from indigenous organizations and advocates. But after sustained pressure, they later rejected it.
A victory, then.
Indigenous leaders celebrated it as historic, a crucial victory, yes. But the grounds for rejection were actually quite narrow technical patent law stuff about novelty prior art. It didn't really grapple with the deeper ethical and cultural issues of appropriation.
So the core problem remains.
Broadening out, the case just highlights the inherent difficulties. You're trying to apply Western IP law with its European roots, focus on individual ownership, commercialization to traditional knowledge, which is often communal, passed down orally, considered sacred. They just don't fit.
What are the main challenges in protecting traditional knowledge like this?
There are huge ongoing challenges. First, just defining what needs protection when knowledge is holistic, intangible. Second, identifying the true owners or custodians, incredibly complex with communal knowledge, no single inventor. Third, determining the nature, scope, duration of rights in a way that respects indigenous views. And finally, establishing a fair relationship with conventional IP systems that weren't designed for this.
Is anything being done internationally?
Well, the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, tries to address biopiracy through its Access and Benefit Sharing, ABS, framework. This requires prior informed consent, PIC, from providers, communities, or governments, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits from using genetic resources.
How's it work?
It faces massive challenges. The ayahuasca patent case showed them vividly. The individual who got the patent collected the vine before the CBD was in force. And crucially, the U.S. has never even been a party to the CBD, which complicates enforcement. Plus, imagine trying to get meaningful consent across multiple diverse communities, multiple nations, for a widely distributed plant. It's an incredibly intricate legal and ethical puzzle.
It certainly seems like a labyrinth, trying to protect something so deeply cultural, so sacred, from being claimed by an individual under a legal system that just doesn't recognize collective or spiritual ownership. Okay, so that brings us to today. This growing global appetite for these experiences. What does this influx of interest really mean for the indigenous communities who've stewarded these practices for millennia?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We saw that explosion of interest back in the 60s: yoga, Zen, Tai Chi, Native American medicines like peyote, mushrooms.
And that interest never really went away.
If anything, it's intensified, diversified, become mainstream. Today, thousands, maybe millions, are actively seeking shamanic approaches. Not just curiosity, but for their perceived inherent value, their transformative potential.
And the fact they've lasted so long.
As many cultural anthropologists observe, the very fact these practices survived, were perpetuated, meticulously passed down for thousands of years by various cultures. That's a powerful testament to their efficacy, their profound human appeal. And we're seeing more academic studies now, too, research on ayahuasca healing, moving it from the fringe towards scientific inquiry.
And what are people looking for? What are they doing?
Many modern seekers are pursuing personal growth, enhanced well-being. They're exploring practical ways to reconnect with intuition, practice stillness in a noisy world, scan their bodies for subtle messages.
Mindfulness practices, essentially.
Yes, nourishing sensitivity through quietude, intentional exercise, rest, conscious food choices, even keeping dream journals to unlock subconscious insights. These are all techniques deeply rooted in shamanic and spiritual traditions worldwide, now being rediscovered, re-embraced by modern folks looking for deeper meaning, authentic connection, holistic healing in a world that often feels disconnected, fragmented, spiritually impoverished.
It's a compelling phenomenon, this modern quest. But it leads right back to that tough question. When spiritual practices rooted in specific cultures become a commodity, a destination for spiritual tourism, what are the unintended consequences, and who really benefits?
Exactly. It raises critical questions. Do Westerners, often from dominant cultures, have the right to just pick and mix from other cultures' spiritual treasures, extracting what appeals without fully understanding or respecting the context?
Is it just disrespectful, or is it actively harmful?
Indigenous Amazonian cultures, for instance, so they've been under direct attack by colonizer capitalist culture for centuries. Organizations like UMAYAC, the Union of Indigenous Yaqueros of the Colombian Amazon, they starkly classify some ethnicities as being in danger of physical and cultural extinction.
Not just cultural loss, but physical threat.
Yes, because the very Amazon forest that's integral to their life and spiritual practice is being systematically destroyed, and indigenous leaders are unequivocal. Cultural appropriation reduces the resilience of our peoples in resistance.
It actively undermines them.
Yes, it undermines their efforts to preserve their heritage, their autonomy. It puts their lives, the ecosystems they protect, at severe risk. They liken it to a new, insidious form of colonization, one that diminishes the original healing potential, the sacredness, when traditions are stripped of context and commodified for outsiders.
Strong words. New form of colonization.
And think about the criticisms leveled against, say, whiteys adopting non-Western spiritual practices like yoga. In some cases, it's led to canceled classes, accusations of promoting white supremacy. The argument isn't just about a misunderstanding, it's that it can be actively destructive, threatening spiritual integrity, even the existence of communities and their ancestral lands. Even anthropologists have been criticized for inadvertently contributing early accounts of marvelous psychedelic ceremonies, perhaps unwittingly opened a floodgate for Western tourists and entrepreneurs who then demand access as if it were their natural right, eroding the purity and sacredness.
That's a truly sobering perspective. It underscores this isn't just about etiquette. It's a profound ethical dilemma with tangible, destructive consequences, threatening spiritual integrity, cultural survival, ecosystems. It's a stark reminder that some things aren't just culturally significant, they're vital for survival.
Absolutely. And what's particularly striking is that deep reciprocal relationship between indigenous traditions and ecological preservation. Indigenous peoples guarded ayahuasca traditions, countless other plant medicines for millennia.
And in doing so,
In doing so, they have protected the Amazon rainforest, often, as some argue, better than it was designated as a reserve or national park. It shows an intrinsic stewardship derived from that animistic worldview.
but what about efforts to give back? Reciprocity.
Well, what's truly insightful and challenging is the observation that even when reciprocity is attempted, or goodwill gestures are made, it is often shaped by Western frameworks of charity rather than justice.
Charity versus justice. What's the difference there?
It means the giving and receiving might not be on equal terms. The underlying power imbalance often persists. Charity can feel like a top-down gift, whereas justice implies addressing systemic inequalities, recognizing rights and sovereignty.
So are there good examples? Ethical engagement?
There certainly are some ayahuasca retreat centers, authentically owned and operated by indigenous communities, or involving genuine, respectful collaboration with Western facilitators. But these commendable examples seem to remain exceptions, not the prevailing rule in the global spiritual tourism landscape.
So the wider wellness industry needs to reflect.
The burgeoning global wellness industry, largely unregulated, often profit-driven, really must confront a profound, difficult truth. Not everything is meant to be shared, at least not indiscriminately, not without deep understanding and permission.
It demands recognizing indigenous sovereignty.
Fundamentally, sovereignty over their spiritual practices, which inherently includes the undeniable right to refuse their commodification, their extraction, their superficial adoption. This isn't about exclusion for its own sake. It's about protecting cultural heritage, preserving sacredness and meaning, ensuring these practices continue to serve and empower their original communities.
Rather than being diluted, misrepresented, or exploited for external profit or just an exotic experience.
Exactly. And this challenge forces us as listeners, as consumers of culture, to really reconsider our role. How can we genuinely support ethical engagement that prioritizes true reciprocity and justice, rather than inadvertently contributing to exploitative appropriation?
A crucial question. We've covered a lot of ground today, journeyed through this rich, complex tapestry of animism and shamanism. We started with those deep roots in Amazonian polychrome traditions, the power of figures like the woman shaman, that integrated worldview where all life is kin.
Then we trace their remarkable resilience through colonial pressures, how practices like ayahuasca shamanism adapted, even thrived in the margins despite suppression.
And finally, we arrived at this complex global revival in the 21st century, full of potential but also significant ethical hazards. Throughout this deep dive, we've seen how these ancient spiritual perspectives offer profound insights into our connection with the living world.
And really underscore the ethical responsibilities that come with engaging with them today.
What really stands out, I think, is that animism isn't just some historical footnote or primitive belief. It's a foundational, sophisticated thread in human spirituality, spanning millennia and cultures, from Amazonian cosmologies to Asian and ancient European traditions.
And the incredible adaptability, the resilience of shamanic practices, persisting, thriving through centuries of challenge, including intense colonial suppression. It shows that profound human need for connection with the sacred.
Absolutely. And most importantly, as these practices gain global attention, we face these crucial, urgent questions. Cultural sovereignty, the dangers of commodification, the imperative for respectful, informed engagement that honors origins and context.
Rather than exploitative appropriation.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for you, our listener? In a world that seems to be increasingly seeking meaning, connection, holistic well-being, how do we honor the origins, the sacredness, the deep cultural significance of these practices?
How do we ensure their 21st century revival genuinely empowers and uplifts the indigenous communities who created and sustained them for generations?
Right. Rather than merely serving the desires and curiosity of a new generation of seekers, potentially at the expense of those very cultures. It's a question that really demands deep personal reflection, continuous learning, and conscious ethical action from all of us.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for tuning into Sonara's Deep Dive. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future episodes. I bring you fresh content every week. Thanks for listening.